welcome you back to the Life and Listings podcast. I have Elena here with Kee Technologies, which is a follow-up boss specialist, and I wanted to bring her on and just kind of share her unique story with you. Hey, Elena, thanks for coming.
Hi, Jennifer. Thanks so much for having me today. I'm so honored to be here in this podcast.
So excited. Tell us a little bit about what you're doing for those of the listeners that don't actually know who Kee Technologies is yet.
Yeah, sure. So a lot of real estate agents are really underutilizing their CRMs, where it's causing them to lose leads and as a result lose business. So where we come to solve that is we provide a done-for-you setup in your CRM. Specifically, we work in a CRM called Follow-Up Boss with done-for-you action plans, automations, smart lists, standard operating procedures, and best practices and training so that you know exactly what to do when you go into your CRM and you ensure you're using it to fullest potential.
Awesome. Before we met, it was so funny. I would see your name everywhere. Everyone's like, you need to talk to Elena. You need to talk to Elena. And I had been in people's follow-up boss and I see Kee Technologies. I was like, who is this person? I clearly need to meet her. And then we met and we got to spend some time at follow-up boss and the rest is history. So I'm so glad we had met. So let's dive right in. What made you get involved in this, in real estate, in CRMs? Where did this all start?
Yeah, it was definitely not a planned business path at all. I went to school for music and studied piano. And then I realized after graduating, my two options were to be a performer or a teacher. I didn't want to be a performer, so I tried teaching. And then I realized, nope, I don't like this. I don't like teaching little kids. They don't practice or do anything. So I did an about face in my career path and started from ground zero and was just looking for some type of administrative role somewhere where I can be an assistant. And I just happened upon an administrative role for a real estate team just locally in the area. And I worked for them for 6 years full time. And I absorbed the marketing position as well. I ended up leaving that position after about 6 years. But while I was there, that's where I got introduced to Follow Boss. So I sort of assumed first the assistant of just going on listing property visits to do room measures and things like that and just the checklists. And then I helped them transition. It was previously called Conversion. Now it's called KV Core. I helped them transition from KV Core to Follow Boss. And that's where I fell in love with Follow Boss, with CRM. And I helped build their systems over the course of those few years I was with them. And then I left that role after I had my daughter. I thought I would be a full-time mom, stay-at-home mom. 10 months in, I realized I needed a little bit more purpose in my life, more stimulation. So I was always a part of the Facebook success community on the Follow Boss success community on Facebook. And I just offered to do random one-off virtual assistant type work. And only about a month into it, people started asking me do you have anything you can just do for me? I don't have the time to tell you what I need. I need someone to tell me what I need instead. So about 1 month into just 5 hours a week of work, I went to the drawing board and I started creating a whole setup based on what I had learned previously of best practices. And it's been a very slow progression of creating the setup of I guess it's 2.5 years at this point. And it just snowballed. I was like, okay, sure, I'll make something for this one person. And then word got around from that one person in the group. And then I commented on one post hey, I can help. And then everyone else was like, oh, I need that help too. So
yeah,
here we are 2.5 years later into this. So it's been a wild ride. Definitely not normal pathway for a lot of business owners.
You know what? But there's no wrong way into building a business, right? We all kind of somewhat fall into what we're doing. I never would have thought I would be running a virtual operations management company. What in the world? I would have never thought when I got my real estate license, I thought I was going to be a realtor and all these things. And I really liked the systems. I like the setup. I like making everything kind of talk to each other. We've spoken about this before, and it's something that we coach to all the time. How do you get an agent, or how do you coach an agent on best practices when selecting a CRM or using it?
Yeah, so you and I just chatted about this a little bit before of really the best CRM is the one you use. But if you are using your CRM and you're looking for a great one, I'm very biased to follow-up boss. I think choosing a CRM that will make your goals realistic and attainable. There's a lot of great CRMs out there, and then there are some that just have so much happening that you kind of get distracted. Like you've got notifications here, you got push notifications on your phone, you've got all of these different buttons you can click. So definitely recommend selecting a CRM where you can keep it simple and focused and you don't get distracted by like one dashboard and then an activity dashboard and then all of these dashboards that look cool and look nice. You can see all of these different things happening and people looking at property alerts or people looking at emails you're sending them. But ultimately just keeping it as simple as possible and having realistic goals for yourself to do each day. Like especially if you go into each quarter and you have these goals that you set for yourself or for your team, although you do want to say, oh, I want to make whatever it is, 200,000 in GCI this year, whatever it is, it's like, okay, well, let's backtrack and realistically figure out, okay, how many closing is that going to take? How many appointments does it take to get to a closing on average? How many calls does it take? And then getting to that point of like, okay, it's going to take me that many calls. Is that realistic? Or do I need to change my goals? So having, I guess my overarching theme is having something that's realistic.
And most agents are not. It's November right now when we're recording this, and generally we're going into like business planning season with our agents, and I always try to tell them to do that. Like, yeah, you want to make $1 million next year. That's amazing. We all do. But let's see, if mainly all of your closings come from open houses, how many open houses are you going to have to do to make that much money? So I love that you're kind of coaching to that. With your setup, do you kind of touch on that? Is that included in some of like your SOPs?
Yeah, so different CRMs call it different things. Follow Boss calls it smart lists. You may be using tasks. Some other CRMs call it segments or filters. But basically, it's figuring out a way to segment your database so that you don't just have one giant task list of, especially if you're making unattainable goals for yourself to say, okay, when I get a new lead, I want to call them every day for 30 days, or I want to call them and text them and email them once a day for 30 days. That sounds great in theory, but it's not realistic to have that expectation on yourself or on agents if you have a team. So instead, we coach having realistic goals. So initially, a smart list would segment, for example, new leads you haven't attempted to call yet. So we want to make that very first priority of at least make one call to new leads. And so it would be like less than 14 days old. There's no logged call. I don't want you to rely on automated messaging. They're nice. It's nice to have that. And you might get a response back to an automated text or an email, but I want to make a call and just do it like once a day. So if you don't reach the lead, then in the next list, the next day, they'll show up again to try again tomorrow. And people's goals may get a little bit crazy sometimes. They say, well, once a day isn't enough for me. I need to do it like once every hour or once every 3 hours. Which is like, okay, that's a great goal to have. But first, let's make sure you can do that at least once a day before you start being a little bit more aggressive on your reach outs to leads. And then new leads isn't your only focus. You also need to focus on people that are either returning to your website and have some sort of behavior. So we have filters in place to say, okay, active in the last 14 days, but I haven't talked to them in the past 14 days. And then people you're nurturing, your past clients. So you want to make sure you don't get so aggressive that you're hung up on just one list of people and you're neglecting the rest of the people because you only have time to block 30 minutes to an hour a day to do the calls.
I love that. I love that you're like really compartmentalizing each section, right? Because I feel like it can get so overwhelming as an agent going, where's my next deal going to come from? I need to call these 5,000 people in the team's database. Well, no, if you really break it down, there's systems that you can set up fairly simply that you can kind of filter through those people. So I love that you're helping that. I mean, what do you see as being some of the big mistakes that agents are making right now?
I would say notification overload. where they receive text notifications of like lead activity. And so they'll call that lead immediately. And then they get notification on their email that someone clicked on an email. Or so just kind of getting distracted, I guess, distracted by all of the notifications. And it's nice to get those notifications and know about that activity and behavior. But then you're sort of neglecting the rest of your database where I suggest turning off notifications because all of that activity gets logged in your CRM, and time blocking intentional time to call people. Now, with new leads, I understand there's speed to lead. So you do need to have that notifications there, especially if you're on a team and you push leads to like a first to claim or like a Shark Tank. Speed to lead is important. But when it comes to actual prospecting time, removing distractions and saying, okay, I'm going to time block and make sure I actually get through the people I need to. Because you may get a notification and then you may call the person just as a knee-jerk reaction without realizing you just talked to them last week or yesterday. You didn't actually need to call them. And so then you've neglected the 30 other people who have been in your website recently that you didn't have a chance to call. So I think that, and then just shiny object syndrome, which I don't think that'll ever go away, but now more than ever, especially with artificial intelligence, there are all of these AI tools. I put quotation marks because I've seen a lot of applications sort of rebrand themselves as AI, and they're really not even artificial intelligence. But just having this fear of missing out because they're not using all of these tools. There are a small handful of artificial intelligence tools that are actually really helpful, but a lot of them are not. And it kind of just takes away from you actually making money. I know that there's like some mega teams that have like an in-house artificial intelligence researcher, and that's great. And that's her full-time job. But for you, if you're a solo agent or a small team, you really can't afford to spend a lot of time looking at all of these tools and seeing all these ads. Like there are presentations at conferences I'm sure you'll see, and they're like, oh, I use this AI tool, or here's this giant pinwheel of 1,000 AI tools, and kind of just getting distracted by all the noise. So just focusing on how to make money, focusing on those money-making actions.
100%. Focusing on their business and just kind of ignoring a lot of this other stuff that's going on right now. I want to know, what AI tools do you find to be really valuable?
I have to think about that one. The number is very small. I'd say I've for Zoom calls, like if you do calls with people, then tools like Fireflies or Buffer are really helpful. I think is that the name of it? And it's not Buffer, it's something else.
There's Otter. Is that
Otter? Yeah, that's one.
Yeah.
Buffer is like a social media platform.
Yeah.
Yeah, those two are helpful, but they're not perfect, and I wouldn't rely on it, especially with their summaries. It misses things, but it does help save some time. I've seen people have good results with like HeyGen. There was a really incredible video I watched of it, like translating a video from English to Spanish. Now, I don't speak Spanish, so I couldn't verify whether or not it looked real. But I think those two, and then tools like Structurally that are built specifically for agents are helpful for artificial intelligence. But yeah, the list is small. After the conference, there were all of these AI tools mentioned. And so I got together with a group of friends. I'm like, okay, let's divide and conquer this.
Yeah.
And I think it was a list of like 300 or something. And so mine was specifically like systems and tools focused. Half of them, I would say like 20% of them are no longer in business. And then 20% of them weren't actually artificial intelligence tools. And then the majority of them is like, well, this wasn't very helpful.
Yeah.
So at this point, I haven't really, I don't know. Have you had any luck with artificial intelligence apps? And do you like any of them?
It's funny. We're just such like systems gurus. So I had to test everything. So I made like a huge, like after going to Tom Ferry, and then I went to FubCon, I had this long running list of all the things that different people had, mentioned. And I kind of went through and I tried to test as many as I can. Some of them just weren't 100% in my opinion. The two that we use, I mean, they're pretty I feel like everybody uses this. We use Opus Pro. So I cut up all of our social media with it. And then ChatGPT. I mean, we use that for basically everything. So far, I'm not in love with anything else yet. I'm always a beta tester though. I always try everything that I can get my hands on. That doesn't cost me like a ton of money. So, but we do have a mutual friend or a mutual client that wants to use a HeyGen. And so I told him I'd help him figure that out. So I'm like super interested in messing with that because that just seems really exciting.
Yeah, a couple weeks ago on the Facebook group for Follow Up Boss, someone posted a video that they had uploaded to YouTube. She was like, "This is not me." And whenever I watched side by side, like a video that was actually her and then a video that was AI her, like it was pretty close. Some of the movements were a little odd. Like I think they try to overcompensate a little bit of making sure it looks real and human. So there's like some weird movements like this, like some weird shoulder shrugs or something, but it's just very minute. um, but yeah, I think, AI has made a lot of progress in the past year. So I don't doubt that soon you won't be able to tell it's not a human, which is exciting and a little
I know.
time.
I'm torn with it because part of me is like, it would be really great if I didn't have to do a bunch of like video content. I could just like type in my content and then like the video would pop up. And then part of me is like, that's so creepy. Like I'm not okay with it. But I don't know. I mean, I think the business we're in, we always have to test it. So awesome. Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. Okay. Last question. What is your superpower?
I would say it's systems and automations and figuring out ways to automate your manual tasks to an extent. You definitely don't want to automate yourself out of a job, but there's a lot of minute tasks that you or a VA is doing that could be automated, whether it's in Follow Up Boss or outside of Follow Up Boss. If it's outside of my scope of knowledge, you and I have a mutual network of people that are really great integrators and automators and system builders. As long as I would say I'm always trying to think, okay, even just for my own personal business and what I do day to day, I'm like, okay, what part of this that I'm doing each day can be automated?
Yeah.
That I'm wasting time on. So yeah, I'm always just thinking through that lens.
Was there a moment in time where you discovered that was your superpower? Like, were you like, aha, I'm really interested in this? Or was it just kind of like over the 6 years of you working in an office?
I definitely think it was over the 6 years. It was funny whenever I was first applying for the job. One of my references was my piano professor. And I didn't find out about this until after I got the position. He told me whenever they called him, and one of the questions was like, why should we hire Elena? He goes, well, pianists make the best entrepreneurs, and they're just the smartest people. And I just thought that was so funny because at the time I had no plans of being an entrepreneur, but it's so true. So I think just the brain of a musician, it's more geared towards creativity and systems, and so I just kind of translated the creativity I was using in music now over for creativity in the tech realm.
You do have to be a little bit creative and a little bit crazy to be an entrepreneur, especially in real estate, right? I mean, it's a little bit. Well, Elena, thanks so much for coming and joining the podcast with us. I loved hearing your story and getting to know you a little bit more. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, whether just to meet you or learn more about Kee Technologies, where should they reach out to?
Yeah, they can go to our website. It's Kee Technologies, so you spell it Kee, technology.com, and there's a little video, and you can learn more about our services. If you wanted to learn more about me in particular, I've got a website as well, elenakee.com.
Amazing. Well, thanks for joining us. Have a great day.
Thank you, Jennifer. Thanks for having me. You as well.